Well, hello, everybody. Happy Saturday, and thank you for listening to Soul Talk. And today we have a guest that's been on Soul Talk before, and I'm very excited about having her on, except the last time she was on Soul Talk, I did not get to interview her. A colleague of mine interviewed her. Her name is Dr. Julie Krull, and she is calling in from Nebraska, and she has quite an amazing a life. I've followed her on Facebook for quite some time and just have really enjoyed her posts and enjoyed the work she does. And I don't even think I probably even know half of it, from Facebook, but I know that she does a lot of good work to help people. Good afternoon or good morning, Dr. Julie.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, it's 11 o'clock here, so it's not quite noon, but it's a beautiful, sunny, snowy, just a glistening morning here in Nebraska. That storm moved through and gave us a wonderful blanket of moisture that was much needed. So, well, hello from Nebraska.
Well, hello there. I have to say I'm from Minnesota, so I know what the cold is like, but I live in Florida, and I don't really like the cold anymore. So I'm always happy when I hear about the beautiful snow and I can feel it through you, but that's about as far as I get to. So today we're going to talk about, I'm sure, quite a few things, but the main part of it is that I wanted to talk to you about you had a near-death experience you're young in your life, and I didn't know if you wanted to kind of talk about that and get started with that, and we branch off from there. And just tell us about your experience and how that came about.
Okay, sure. When I was a young child, I had chronic tonsillitis. Just chronic tonsillitis. They really could never really treat it and get it over with, and I needed my tonsils out, and they never really could get to a good place to get my tonsils out because I always had this infection. And so when I was 4 years old, I had another bout of this chronic tonsillitis. And I'll just share from my perspective of the 4-year-old child and help you understand, and then we can talk about what happened, because what's really interesting is our consciousness as a 4-year-old, our perception of the world, our cognitive abilities, our language, everything is so different from our understanding as an adult. So it makes kind of a fun story. But I was 4 years old and very sick, and my mom put me down for a nap in our little trailer house. And I remember that I was on her bed. She put me down for a nap in her bedroom. And she tells the story that she gave me Clorets gum for my sore throat, which was green, which is a part of her story, which is kind of funny. But I'm down for my nap, and my mother comes in the bedroom, and she says, "Okay, Julie, time to get up," and then leaves, and I don't get up, and she's yelling, "Okay, Julie, wake up," and, she's in the other room, and she comes back in. And I see her, my eyes are open, and I'm watching her walking around the bed and looking at me and trying to wake me up, saying, "Julie, stop pretending. This isn't funny." And I'm laying there with my eyes open, but I'm not talking to her. I'm not responding. I'm just watching her with my eyes. And so she's a very young mother, and she's like, "Stop pretending. This isn't funny. It's time to wake up." And I obviously watched her get more upset and more upset, and then things started shifting, and she called my dad and my grandma, and then I left my body. And so from the 4-year-old's perspective, I, left my body, and I went into this beautiful, warm, safe, familiar place of light. There was beautiful light. There was blue light, but there was that pure white light, and there was this presence of this very old man very long gray, white beard and a cape, and there was just his presence there. There was no conversation, but I left my body and went into this realm and then watched as my dad picks me up, scoops me up, takes me out to the station wagon. My grandma, my mom, my dad get in the car, and they rush me off to the emergency room. And I'm just in this place watching it. And they get to the emergency room and, are doing their thing. And finally they do a spinal tap, which relieves a lot of the pressure on my spinal cord at the time. And then instantly I'm back in my body and in pain, and I'm crying. And so that process was really quite incredible, and I didn't understand it for a really long time. And so when I was a young teenager, the things that I knew was, one, I totally never allowed myself to be sick. I always thought that if I was sick, I was pretending. And I really created a lot of guilt and shame from the pre-near-death consciousness of my mother getting all upset and telling me to stop pretending. Well, what literally happened was I was paralyzed at the time. I was in septic shock, and the bacterial infection had entered my bloodstream, and my organs began to shut down really quickly, and I was really, really sick and at a bad place. But I was there enough before the out-of-body experience that I'm listening to my mother getting all upset, and that really imprinted something in my mind about my voice. I couldn't speak. I was literally paralyzed, so I could watch her with my eyes, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I was just this limp rag doll. And, of course, my 4-year-old mind, I remember everything. It's crystal clear, but I didn't have the cognitive ability to really process that. So then when I was an older teen and young adult, the adults in my life were talking to me about the story, and do I remember? And then it's like, of course I remember. And the green Clorox gum was the thing that finally got my mom to realize something was really wrong. It's because I had that gum in my mouth, and evidently there was just green slobber coming out of my mouth all over the place, and she realized that, I wasn't moving. And so, anyway, that's the synopsis of that experience.
Wow. So you literally experienced the leaving the body. That's not a lot of experiencers have that. Well, they experience going up somewhere, but that's very cool. So my question is, at 4 years of age, you had this experience. Did you tell your family about it afterwards, or or could you even do that?
I don't remember talking about it until I was a teen. Mm-hmm. And really my family, there was really a lot of chaos and trauma, and, childhood was a real dark place for me. And so that was just like one experience. And so with that experience, I developed a really a universal consciousness, I would say, that ability to really see from a whole different perspective of what was happening on the earth. And I think that was a really big part of really my survival instincts of going through what I did as a child. So it was really quite interesting. So I never really talked about it, and I really didn't know that it was not normal. It was just like my experience, and I didn't know that other people don't experience this. I remember even, as an adult, one time when I was talking about lights, I was seeing in lights. We were traveling in a car one time. I'm like, isn't that so cool how these lights do this? And everybody's like, what? and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I see differently than other people see, and I have to remember that. But so I never really talked about it. And my family, they just knew how scary it was. They knew how sick I was. They knew how paralyzed I was. They knew I was in the hospital. But it wasn't that, oh, she had a near-death experience and has something to tell. It was just this event that was scary for everybody.
Yeah, that they were going to lose someone they loved, and they didn't really see it as. So when you came back into the body, you felt all the pain in the body, but before you didn't. It's trying to absorb all that, because I can feel the energy off of you when you're talking about it. It's quite incredible. So as a result of this experience kind of got you through your childhood, because you mentioned it was a dark childhood. It gave you the universal consciousness enough to be able to experience and go through what you did and get through it. Is always kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Jeremy, because really that experience was really pivotal in opening something for me. And I'll just give you another example of how that really did help. I always had that comforting presence, and I had that ability then, literally, to without the language to really describe it, to walk in both worlds. And I remember when I was 11, the second really significant experience that I had, that I think that near-death experience opened, or whatever, the soul contract or whatever opened it from way back. But I was 11 years old, and I was having this conversation with God and the universe, and I was looking at domestic violence and pain and suffering and people, and saying, I really don't want to be on this planet. I had these dialogues a lot with God and the universe, and just having conversations about the world. And I was just a young kid, and so I'm 11, and I go outside, and I'm just having this conversation about, I don't get the point. I don't get these humans. I don't understand all this pain and suffering, why all of these people around me. And it wasn't really my pain and suffering, but it was being in situations where I probably should have had pain and suffering, but watching people hurt each other. And so I'm like trying to renegotiate with God at that time. And I'm 11 years old, and I'm like, okay, I don't get the point. Why do I have to be here? This earth thing just doesn't, it's not fun. And at that point, that same presence from my near-death experience, I had another out-of-body experience at 11, and I'm leaving my yard and going out into the cosmos, and just being transported, and I'm looking down at the earth, and this presence of this man figure, long, gray, white beard, robe, goofy headpiece. He's with me, and we're looking at the earth as if it's a snow globe in our hands, so like we're holding the earth in this laboratory kind of place. And all of this information came to me without a spoken word. And so here I am, 11, going, I really don't want to be here. And I could see the earth and the plan and people's consciousness and really the pain and the suffering of separation and what was happening. But this snow globe type of thing, all of a sudden this big flash of light comes in. Excuse me. And, in a snow globe you have all those little crystally pieces of snow that shine and glisten like glitter. Yep. So all of these glitter from the snow globe land on the earth, on the planet, and light up the planet, like you kind of see images of that now, especially with the 2012 thing and what have you. And then they begin to start connecting and weaving, and this whole movie of our time and what's happening on the planet and my work was all just given in this beautiful place. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I get it, and boom, I'm back in my yard and going, oh, dang, And so that whatever we want to call it, that was opened from that early childhood really has been this constant comforting, safe guidance piece for me, and really giving me a bigger picture, which, I don't know, I think that sometimes it's really part of a gift to be able to take the big picture and make it really simple for people to understand it in a whole new way. And so I've been able to use that in my life's work and in helping other people.
It's interesting because when you're describing the energy of that, you have the experience at 4, and then you have the experience at 11, and in numerology, I just want to point out 11 is mastery. So it just occurred to me that as you're negotiating with God, why do I have to be here? And you're seeing all this pain and suffering in the world. At that moment, you're seeing things on the micro. And then, you go into this out-of-body experience and you go way up and you see it on the macro. And that's kind of what you're describing to me, is then you come back down. I don't know what it gave to you afterwards, but it's almost like that energy was trying to give you the profound experience, the profound understanding of what was going on a cosmic or quantum level, and say, hey, there's a bigger picture here. Remember,
exactly.
Your soul or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was a wonderful remembering, and it was one of my benchmarks. It was like, okay, there's a plan. And then I go about my 11-year-old life, It was kind of hard to be an 11-year-old in my body because I never fit in with anyone. I just didn't fit in with my peers. And so, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
I can totally relate to that. I had a lot of trouble being around my peers. I wanted to grow up really fast, and I just had something, but then I didn't even realize what that meant. It was hard to disseminate when you had all this knowledge understanding at a young age, but you didn't know where it came from. It was very difficult. So, but you learn to learn, and you learn to discern and grow with that. So this became obviously in your life's work. Your life's work is helping people. Where did these experiences take you? I mean, I know you have your PhD and you work with people, but can we talk a little bit about that and where it took you? Sure,
yeah. Even after the 11-year-old experience, there was still a lot of darkness in my mortal life and experiences on the earth, and there just was this innate drive to really go out, get my PhD, continue, do what I can. And there was this stubborn, I'll take care of myself kind of drive inside of me. But I went off, I got my bachelor's degree and my master's and then my PhD. And have had a private practice for the last 27 years or something like that. It's been 27 years now. And it's really fueled, here's another one of those experiences. I've had, numerous of these mystical experiences and this heightened sense of intuition. And so I always knew when I was in my 20s and it was my career, I always knew that my life work started in my 50s. I always knew that. I always knew that the other parts were preparing me for right now on the planet from that vision. I just knew that. And I could see, I'm a seer, and I could see myself in my career as a 50-year-old and what that would look like. And so seeing clients, doing my writing, doing coaching, spiritual direction, those kinds of things have been like the training ground for this next phase of life. And really, I really see that work and that preparation and these experiences are really to help move us into this co-creative unity consciousness on the planet now, and it's just a fun time to be alive. It's really amazing.
Definitely.
So
it definitely is. So you noticed a lot of the same things I've noticed. I didn't understand why at the age of like 14 I thought I was a nerd reading psychology books and sociology books and the textbooks. I got a textbook and I just thought I'd read it. And then growing up, studying theology, how many 14-year-olds study that kind of stuff? And later on in life, and I just kept on reading. Then I became a corporate trainer and learned how to be a master trainer, and then began to learn learning styles and adult learning. But more importantly, I got over my fear of speaking in front of people. And so it's like we look back now. It's like I knew I was being prepared for something because at the age of 7, I got visions of me standing in front of thousands of people, and I didn't know what that meant. And I don't know if did you get profound like visions like that helped you understand that in your 50s, or was it a knowing, or was it?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. It was a knowing and a vision, and I could definitely see. And who knows why the age or the chronological? Like, I just knew it was my 50s. That was the knowing part. But I definitely had visions, and definitely.
Yeah, and have you found though? It's like I really understand. We look at the age, and then I'm really looking at it now because there's young spiritual teachers that are younger than I am that are saying, and you can feel it off of them, they're saying the same things you and I are. Unity consciousness, oneness, love, compassion. I mean, I have a student, and sometimes he's my teacher because I'm his student too, and he's 20 years old. And the things that come out of his mouth, I look at him and I'm like, are you sure you're 20? Are you?
Isn't it amazing? Because look at our old paradigm. The paradigm is, and we honor our elders, and they hold the wisdom, and they're the wisdom keepers. But these kids are being born in this evolutionary time, and they're hardwired for it. There's just, it's just, that's part of the evolution on the planet, and they're hardwired with a different kind of wisdom. It's this knowing and this seeing, these seers. It's just really different. Yeah, who gave that to you when you were 14 and me when I was 11, So maybe it is about the timing on our planet, not our chronological age.
I think it really comes down to the age of the soul, or the experience. Is there even age with the soul? It's the experience of the soul. The soul came in. I was joking on a thread earlier and said that I'm turning 39 next week, and I said I'm old, and one of the ladies in there is in her 60s. She is, don't even get me started. But I said, but in reality, we're all quantum. Our age means nothing, but our soul has experience. And I don't know where that came from. It just came out of nowhere. And so I think, I see 39 and you're saying 50s, but I don't even see a difference, to be honest with you, on soul level. We're just in flow. So, as a matter of fact, I when you said 50s, I was thinking more like you were a couple years older than me.
I just turned 50 in December, actually, really close to the birth 2012 piece of December 22nd. My birthday's just a week before that. So, I just turned 50 and I love it. Yeah.
Is this your family on your website? Your husband and your children?
Probably, on my actual website. There is a picture of them, Yeah,
and they're me, Dr. Julie.
Yeah.
It looks like you're holding your daughter. And okay, I just want to make sure. So if you guys are listening, Dr. Julie's website is www.juliekrull, and her last name is Krull, and it's .com. So definitely check out her website. She's got a lot of good stuff. She's got her blog on here, the stuff that she does. But your PhD is in psychology, if I'm understanding correctly. But you're more than that. You do energy medicine. You do quite a few things, actually.
It seems like my life path. It was like I was guided to get my PhD in counseling psychology for the Western allopathic mind, for this credibility piece with the left brain and the conservative, to really integrate integrate the new and integrate, it's all about this integration. I was called to be a bridge, and so bridging the East and the West, bridging alternative with allopathic medicine, just everything, heaven and earth. It was just about really integration and teaching that. And so, so I went the traditional route and got my PhD, and I have a license to practice, counseling. And then I do the other things, and it's really the integration piece that's really important.
And I'm finding that a lot in the therapy realm too. It's my one of my good friends. She lives in Kentucky. She's got her master's in she's a psychiatric social worker. So she's got psychology and social work in there. And then she does exactly what we do: quantum healing and bridging and helping people understand the bridge, the balance between the two. And there's another girl down in Sarasota who's a good friend of mine. She's a PhD in transpersonal psychology, but she does a psychomantium. I don't know if you ever heard of that, and it's mirror gazing in a dark room that Dr. Moody came up with, and she has people connect with their family members that have passed on through the psychomantium, and it's having profound effects on grief counseling, and it's quite incredible that what we're doing, because I think what's happening is that the allopathic side is starting to soften and realize there's more to this than what we want to see. And I think what we're talking about right now is very important to really show that here's somebody that went that route, but also understood there was another side too, and really brought balance into it. So I commend you.
Oh, thank you. I always say it's time to put the soul back in psyche. That's where it used to be, And then we compartmentalized and worked on our dualistic thinking and started to separate things. And really the psyche is all about the soul. That's the root word of it. So, and then to put the spirit back in healthcare. It's all one. It's just all one.
Yeah. My mother did a research project on bringing spirituality back in the workplace and the national attention with hospice, because she literally showed that 78% of hospice workers would love to have spirituality in the workplace. Not religion, spirituality, because the nature of their business was spiritual, helping people transition. But you could take that into corporate America, into a bank, and I bet you it would be right there too, because people want something that makes them feel complete.
Yeah.
And they're feeling not complete. They're not feeling whole, and they're still searching. So, if we guide them back to the water, the cosmic waters, it would really help them a lot.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you experience it. It just comes out of you, and you don't know where it came from. I was really interested in your near-death experience because it happened as a child, and I talked to a lot of people that have heart attacks and gone, went to the other side, and they were adults, so they processed it like an adult. And I had interviewed a lady about a year ago named PMH Atwater, and she was doing research on child NDEs. And I haven't followed up with her to find out where she's at on that, but it's I find it really interesting because the child doesn't have the mind that an adult has to process it. In some ways, I think that they probably have an easier way of experiencing it because the adult would process it through all their filters of an adult. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that. It's
that is fascinating. Sorry, were you finished?
No, go ahead.
The piece that I think that the part that's fascinating is when you speak of that, I can't imagine having one of those experiences as an adult for the first time, because the thing that happened with me, and I haven't done a lot of research into it to see the common shared vision and, and what's happening with the research, but because I was so young, it just was integrated into who I was without those filters, without the judgment, And so it became an integral part of who I was in my development, and I never knew that it was weird or different. You know, I would have these experiences, and I didn't know that other people weren't having these experiences until much later. And so I allowed, and I was just trusting, and it just became a part of who I am. And, you know, I read, Dr. Alexander, his hot book out right now of his near-death experience. I haven't read it, but going from this analytical, scientific understanding of the mind and the brain and how it works and our physiology, and then having the experience, you know, he's like, wow, okay, it's really true, you know. It's a whole different dynamic than not needing to process it. It's just, yeah, that's so true. When I was a kid, it was just a part of my experience, and then that kind of openness to the other realms was just a daily, everyday kind of thing then. It wasn't scary or weird, or I didn't have to say, was I on a bunch of drugs, or was I, you know, was it a moment in time? It just became an integral part of my life.
Yeah.
Is that common in kids, do you think? Have you,
you're actually the first person I've talked to that had a child near-death experience. That's why I was actually fascinated by it. But I will share this with you, is that Dr. Atwater, she feels that the experience is profoundly different for a child than it is for an adult. And you and I talking reminded me of the interview when she was talking about that, and that she was in the beginnings of it. I think it's pretty common because, I mean, I'm just thinking. I've had friends, several friends with near-death experiences. One of my friends that I was talking about in Virginia, she's had 4 in her life, and one of them was as a child, but she doesn't really remember that. The one she remembers is at 48 when she had a heart attack, and but then it took her 7-8 years. She even said she's still processing. Because at first, she says, I had all these codependencies going on, and my family was very codependent and angry and upset, and I was pushing myself and driving myself in life and forgetting about life. So she had to, after she had the experience, pull all that away. And I have another gentleman named Eugene. He had an experience in 1975 when he was 15, where he drowned and he met God. But it wasn't at a 4-year-old's mindset. They're still so close to God in some ways that they're not filtered by all of our expectations of the world, or the way we think it should be. And you just looked at it as, hey, that was just a part of my, what happened. You didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be, or it wasn't normal. And I think that's completely incredible in a sense that. And then it changed it. And then even at 11, when you had the out-of-body experience, you saw things from a different perspective, and then you had the out-of-body experience, which in some ways I'm wondering if it's even the out-of-body and the near-death experience, if they're that much different.
I wonder that too. It would be really interesting to read more about other people's experiences, because it felt like, it was the same comforting realm, and it was like the 11-year-old, it was like setting my life on a path. It was like it was a purpose, and it was, it really just clunked into place, and I understood my place in the universe at that time, where I didn't at 4, but then it just opened me to really a lot more of these experiences, and a lot, just different times of healing, different, just almost everyday kind of mysticism experiences that just unfolded after that. But those 2 seem to be really significant in my mortal life, like bringing me onto the planet. Those 2 pieces kind of set something into place or into form.
I interviewed Dr. Goswami last week, and we were talking about quantum physics and quantum states and stuff like that, and somebody called in and talked about their near-death experience, and he gave this really great description of it, and I mentioned experience, and he says, I want to just take into consideration that it wasn't an experience, because the experience is a process for the human mind, but when they die and go to wherever it is they submerge back into God, or they leave their body or whatever, they're not human anymore. They're spirit. And
right.
So they go quantum. They go into a quantum mind or a non-local mind. And he goes, and then when they come back, they're processing. So really, when you go into the out-of-body experience, in the near-death experience, you go quantum. You leave your non-local mind or your non-local mindset, and you go into a quantum consciousness. And in the way he's describing it, and I just thought it was an interesting way to look at it, and it made sense.
Yeah, I didn't have a physical body in either of those early experiences. It was just the field, it was just an immersion with all that was, and my consciousness was non-local, just like you said, and so there is no body.
Right.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why your pain left. You didn't experience any pain until you went back into the body. Wow.
Yeah, and the exciting part was, they stuck this huge long needle in my spine, and I'm watching it. I'm watching it happen. And then I'm back in my body. It's like, damn, that hurts, But as I watched it, there was, there's this lifeless person, in the sterile examining room in the ER, and yeah.
Well, incredible. It's not incredible that you had to go through the pain, but it's almost incredible that the soul stepped out so you didn't have to experience the actual happening of it.
Yeah.
Going from the ambulance and all the fear and everything. And then, so you didn't have to, you felt the pain when you came back into the body, but the needle would have been pretty traumatic to a 4-year-old.
Exactly. Yeah, the needle was traumatic for my mom. That was part of her story, too, is, here I was, this ragdoll, lifeless thing, and then this big, long needle comes, and then I finally cry. Those were words. Then you finally cry. It's like you're alive, and so, yeah, I can't imagine me with my child and having to look at this really long needle going into their spine. That would be scary.
Yeah, I have problems when I take my dogs to the vet and they put a needle in them. I couldn't even imagine a child. I would be like, no, you don't. Do you really have to do that? Because I just don't even like to see my dogs yelp, let alone seeing a child of mine cry. That would be because our job as well as parents is to protect them. So that's the very foundation when they're crying. So.
Yeah. Well, even that cry, when I think of my mom's words, it's like the birth of a baby when they come out and they're not crying and then they cry. It's like bringing life and new life, and that's how I think about my mom's story too, is just that second cry, that second birth.
Well. So you've been doing quite a bit lately. Last week I spoke to you. You were in Denver?
I was in Boulder, yeah. Barbara Marx Hubbard was out there and working with a bunch of amazing people in the Boulder area and working on conscious evolution and yeah, just a lot of amazing things that are unfolding.
Very cool. You said Barbara Marx Hubbard? Is that what?
Yes.
She's actually in a movie with a friend of mine coming up very soon when it releases, called I, God. And so that should be coming out, I'm hoping, this year. So it should be a very interesting movie. Her and Debbie Ford's going to be in it because it was filmed, last year. Uh-huh. And so it'll be Debbie Ford's last movie, really. So, which will be a a good thing. But actually, that's a good. I'm glad I went into that because we're talking about Debbie Ford was a big person in our community. We're talking about death. When you now that you've had that experience, how do you feel about the actual death? Have you ever had the same perception of death that people do? I mean, is it or is it? Do you know it? We just transition into another state.
I just totally see it as a transition, and and I really trust that, because really, when the mind can wrap itself around that, it's really freeing and liberating and healing. It really, when we understand the transition and that we are a part of something, we're an integral part of something that's much greater than ourselves, the power that comes from that understanding can move mountains. I mean, that's the whole core of spirituality. And, and one of my creative projects right now, I'm really trying to take a lot of the sacred writings and really show that it's the same thing. A lot of our scripture, a lot of everything, it's, when you can really understand it from this perspective, it's powerful. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, because we're not seeing it from the words, we're seeing it from the soul, from God's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I know. I was just going to say, that the creating ourselves as a separate self in the world of duality creates so much pain and suffering and the struggle of really thinking that we're separate. And yet, it's not that duality. I used to say duality was an illusion. It's just an illusion. But really, we are born into this dualistic world, and the goal is really the integration of the oneness and the unity with the duality. And it sounds kind of crazy because a lot of people think we're resolving duality and what have you, but really it's really an integration. It's just more of that integration. It's like duality is unity. You just have to look at it differently. And that in itself is quite incredible.
It is, and it actually goes back to a Bible scripture that I'm very fond of, and it's actually about marriage, and it says that when a man and a woman shall marry, they shall become one. And I've not looked at it the way that most Christians look at it. I look at it as this: when the left and right hemisphere come together and marry, then the whole body becomes one. And it submerges back into its unity consciousness. And so I was like, and I remember reading that probably about 10 years ago, and I read it, and I was like, I don't think that's what most people think it is. And so it was a couple of years ago, and I was like, wait a minute, because the Bible is a book of alchemy, as far as I'm concerned. It's how we turn our lead into gold, or our heavy thoughts into freeing, liberating thoughts. And so when I was like, wait a second, so if I literally merge and marry myself within, and the duality, it doesn't mean there's still not a left and right hemisphere. They've just learned how to work in a synergy, and as opposed to
Yes, see, that's alchemy in itself, just the understanding of it, because it's so much more. That's a beautiful metaphor, because it's, your left and your right brain, but it's your masculine and your feminine. It's, it's all of duality if we look at it, because we all have masculine and feminine and the left and right and, all of that. So that's really beautiful, Jeremy. I love that. Thank you for sharing it.
Welcome. I'm just enjoying our show here, because it's really in flow with what we're both trying to accomplish, and that's just to get people to. I think it's really about they're still there, but we're teaching them how to end the struggle within themselves. Because we're learning how to end the struggle within ourselves, and the more and more we learn that in ourselves, we're able to teach it to other people, and or witness it to other people. Really. Demonstrate it.
I like to use this metaphor with people and I call, the separate self or the ego. The ego is simply seeing itself and comparing and contrasting and competing in this world of duality. But the essence of who we are, the sacred self, I like to say separate self and sacred self, the sacred self, when you really hold that consciousness, it's like the center of the storm. I use this with clients a lot. It's like, imagine a tornado coming through. In the eye of the tornado or in the eye of the hurricane, it's calm, it's peaceful, it's sunny up above. I remember the movie Twister and watching this huge tornado coming over them, and then they're in the center of the storm. It's like, But when we're in ego or separate self, we get into those states of comparing and contrasting and competing, and we're always in the realms of desire and want and feeling broken or half or not good enough, not whatever enough. We never have enough. And shifting into that place of sacred self, we literally can sit in this place of peace and be in the field and be in the flow of the universe, and everything is calm and peaceful, and we literally can see people in their ego state storming all the way around us. Everybody's storming, and you really don't storm with them. It's like, okay, I see you're in your storm now. But as you sit in that sacred self, that peaceful place, and it's that unity consciousness we're talking about, you're flowing with the universe, and you are merging with the field and the intelligence of everything, that universal intelligence, that collective intelligence is right there. And it's this beautiful, calm place.
Absolutely. It's a good place to be. It's a joyous life. And I get excited every day. And when I see people in their storm, I look at them and I just look at them and I understand where they're at because I was there. And I'm like, I know where you're at. And that's where the compassion comes in.
Yeah.
Because we often want to jump into that duality with them, and what happens is that we're not assisting them, and we're not assisting ourselves. We're creating more of that duality within ourselves, and that's where the struggle ends. That's when we're really going to start seeing the shift. And I'm seeing the shift. I don't know if you're seeing that shift happen within the world. I'm really seeing people wake up, so to whatever the terminology that a lot of us like to use. But I'm seeing people realize in themselves, wait a second, I don't have to do this hard anymore. And so
I just had that conversation this morning, and when we join people in that place of the duality and the pain and the suffering, we really don't serve them, and we when we stay in that center, we can elevate them and they can join us, and we can transmute that field of the illusion that's keeping them suffering. But I just had that friend, like, I won't join you there, but I'll hold this space, and you can do what you want dancing around it if you feel like it.
Yeah. And I think actually how I met you is that you were part of the Awesome Women's Hub. You were part of that group, if I remember correctly, or at least you were interwoven in that network. And I bring this up. I bring this up because it was really actually amazing to watch that group of women build that page and watch you and Carla and Robin really just explode on Facebook, and I knew there was something more to it. And then talking to friends that I've met as a result of that, you guys created this sharing network of community, and literally demonstrated that as a group, as a whole, as a community of working together, that we can build something, and we can even demonstrate it right here on Facebook. And so imagine if we could take that out into the real world. and we're doing that.
We are. You know, I like to, Robin was really good about teaching the generosity model, and I like these words, genius, generosity, and generative. And they all come from the root word, the Latin word genere, which means to bestow. And it really is quite, so think of the word generative. You know, it's really reproducing itself and propagating this. And so genius and generosity and generative all come from that same place of giving. And the more that we're giving and sharing, not competing and comparing and contrasting, which is the ego, but really moving into essence and just being that and to share it liberally with others, we are changing the world. You know, it really is happening in this beautiful, generative way.
Right. Yeah. And I'm seeing it on a daily basis. I get excited. I've actually started getting up, and a friend of mine was doing this, and I've started getting up as a result of them saying this and saying, surprise me. You know, just literally experiencing the day based on that energy of like it was Christmas.
Yeah.
And I walked into a building the other day, and I stepped into this building, and it had marble floors, and it looked like a palace ballroom or something like that. And I just walked in like a child would, and I imagined myself being a king or a prince or whatever. And I saw myself walking into that and hearing His Royal Highness Jeremy McDonald walking in the door. But I saw everybody else as that too. And then we were all coming together in oneness, not above each other, because we really are, I consider us all divine royalty. And when we take on that consciousness, but royalty in flow, love, compassion, not strife, taking away from, or dominance, that we're all the equals of unity. And so, I thought to myself, wow, if we all came in with this understanding of the greatness of what we are, the beauty and love and compassion and generosity that we are, then we really, that's where the change is happening. If we come in with a smallness or insignificance or littleness of ourselves, then we can't be that because we don't feel that, and then we feel less than everybody else, and we feel then we have to make other people less than us to feel better. And so it was quite a liberating experience for me, and I was like, wow, how very cool.
Yeah, see, yep, there it is. That is such a beautiful analogy. And the bottom line, I love that. What did you say, divine royalty? Is that what you said?
Divine royalty, yeah.
Yeah, which is really the bottom line message is we are all this amazing part of divinity expressing itself through us. And so claim it, like step into it and acknowledge and be that fully, be the divine essence that you are, and amazing things happen, and the world just flows beautifully, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then you and I had 2 interviews planned. I just thought about this. It was a little over a year ago, we were going to interview, and then I was going to that seminar with Dr. Moody and my friend Sylviane, and you talked and had an interview.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, and I started giggling because last week I ended up double booking, and then we're interviewing this week. And I thought it was very interesting because you were at a conference, you were probably teaching, and you were going to step out of that conference last week, and I thought, we spoke at the right and perfect time. It was supposed to happen today because, you might have been in a different mindset, and the year before I was in a different mindset. And I want to express that because I really think people need to hear the spiritual teachers say this. And I don't know if you see that, you'll probably agree with me, is that we go through our stuff too. We're learning and growing, and we get these hits. And to me, it was like, we're going to talk at the right and perfect time, and not a second sooner. And I think that's a great thing to think about.
I will reinforce that, Jeremy, because it is so true. Because you and I booked and I didn't even know I was going to Boulder. And Boulder came up, and I went, and I held my commitment with you, like, okay, I just have to stop what I was doing. But I was in the middle. I was in a whole different mindset, and I had commitments there, but I knew I would stop, and I would make that work, and I would have a conversation with you, and then I would start going again. And really, it was perfect divine timing, because it wasn't convenient. And then what happened as a result was the whole schedule. Because I was working with a lot of different people's schedules, and it was like, okay, we're taking a break from here to here, and then we're having a meeting here, and then we're talking here, and it was perfect that I wasn't on the radio last week. It was perfect.
It was so
perfect.
I have to laugh because I was really trying to make it work, actually. I was like, and then I thought, and I hear my mother come up in my ear, and for those of you that don't know, my mother passed away, but she still talks to me, and she goes, "Jer, tell Dr. Julie that you double booked." And I was like, because I don't know if you remember the email I sent you. I was like, it was one email, and then about a half hour later, I go and I email you back and say, I double booked. I'm sorry.
Yep. That was funny.
But we're down to the last 4 minutes of our show. Is there anything that you would like to add, like any projects that you're working on that you would like to talk about and bring up?
Oh, you know what? There's so many amazing things that are happening, and you know, when we listen to that divine flow, we're so guided. So if anybody's listening, questioning that, trust it. We're so guided. So in that place, I've just had some brand new projects just dropped in my lap that totally fit with my life purpose, but were totally out of left field that I never would have imagined myself. So there's one brand new exciting project that I'm working on that I'm not ready to unveil yet, but it's really quite incredible. But in the meantime, I am doing a couple different workshops and journeys online. Had lots of people asking for what I'm going to do, the beautiful compost journey again. And so I think I'm going to look at scheduling that in the next month or so. And right now we're doing a Facebook training for conscious evolutionaries, which will be exciting. I'm doing that with with Cheryl. You and I talked about traveling around the world with Cheryl last year. We traveled around the United States. And so Cheryl and I are going to do a Facebook class, which usually isn't my focus, but I really see a need with people who are trying to change the world right now, really not knowing how to use social media, like you were talking about the power of it. So we are going to teach some of our best secrets and really do that Facebook class coming up here in March. And then I'm partnering with a couple other people to do some exciting new education pieces as well. So I'll have to watch the website. The website's going to shift real soon in the next week or so, and with some new offerings, which will be exciting. So
very cool.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Very cool. Definitely, and I'm excited to see those. And again, guys, if you want to check out our website, it'll be in the comments or the description below. But it's also it's www.juliekrull.com. So check out our stuff, and definitely, if you get a chance, if you really enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this interview, share it. And thank you, Dr. Julie, for coming on the show. And I'm sure we'll talk real soon. And you guys have a blessed day.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.